Okay. Yep, everything's setting up. So, I'm taking a little bit of a sidetrack and doing that math that I talked about on thread. Okay. So if we do the calculation on that, Hey, Robot. New Year. So happy New Year. And by the way, if you remember, I said that I was working on some stuff. So I wanted to do some math on the stream, right? On the thread, I said that, hey, I'm not sure about the fusion math, right? So, I am doing all the fusion math for the thrusters. Are 1% fission reactions and our 1% 1% that comes out to, what did I say it was? Fuel, but what happens if we raise our efficiency? Well, I'm doing a very basic calculation. Raising both to 10% means we get tons of fuel for this. It's a very simplified calculation compared to the actual thing. Like, I did not take into account what do you call it, orbital dynamics, right? So I started with basically saying, okay, first we need to calculate how long of a burn do you actually need, right? We know that they can do 10 meters per second squared, so I'm going to use that as a round number. right? So let's calculate how long you need to do if your goal is to do the Earth transit trip of of 9.12 days at at 10 AU proximity distance to the zenith jump point, right? And that comes out to 30 minutes of burn on either end, assuming you're coming to a full stop at either end, right? This is ignoring orbital chicanery that'll probably mess with the actual math. Probably, so I think it overall would mean you might actually save fuel, but I don't understand the equations enough to go for it. But now, anyways, assuming for yada yada second, say for the second birds total at these these 1% each efficiencies, it's at these low. 20 left over for maneuvering. Even escape slash regain. Assuming a perfectly Happy New Year. But yeah. Wait, where did I calculate the plume mass? It is. What happens if I knock this back? When I do 0.01 for both of these. I mean, the burn efficiency is... Hey, Muffin! Thanks for the raid! That's really nice of you! I am doing a lot of math. I am calculating fusion thrust. I'm calculating fusion thrust like numbers. Basically, I'm writing this story, and in it there are fusion torches, and someone said, "Hey, the fusion engines in this game are like extremely unrealistic, right? Based on my calculations, they should be like extracting more energy from the fusion reaction than should exist, right? But when I saw those calculations, I was like, those look weird to me. And so, I did them all. This is all the calculations necessary to figure out A, how long you would need to burn for, how much you would need to burn, and like how big your fuel tanks would end up being. Which is I mean, it's technically almost like this is technically almost like proving someone wrong. Someone said, "Hey, hey, I need to figure out. Say, are your systems do your systems involve the local magic?" And I was like, I've heard about the local magic in the BattleTech universe, but at the same time, I don't think those numbers work out because I've only heard about it indirectly, right? So when I did that, I came out with all of these. Hold on. 038. Yeah, that's correct. That's correct. And if we bump it up to the 10% numbers, that should be good. That is how much? It's 111.7. And then assuming a perfectly, let's say a perfect efficiency, we get it all the way down to, and if I set these both to 1, what do we get? 11 tons of fuel. Zero. What? 3-2? Is that what I put here? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Nord usually has like some kind of a deal going, and they seem to be, of the 2 VPN services I've used so far, I've used Nord and PIA. I'm currently stuck with PIA because I did one of those deals where you pay for 3 years up front. I did it with Nord first, and Nord was great. They had a device limit, which kind of sucked, but their actual service was pretty good, and they had like a bunch of extra features that were nice. I am putting it at 10%. It's technically 1% of the overall energy. Yep, it's 10%. Only 10% of the fusion energy is being calculated as kinetic energy for the math, and then only 10% of the drive plume is being burned as like fusion energy. That is being turned, which is actually extracting fusion energy. So yeah. No worries. But yeah, now I just need to share this. So I say save this first. Share this, share snapshot, copy that link. Please feel free. Jun's Higgs generator is being planned for use with these systems. Liquid light isn't, because realistically the way liquid light would interact with this stuff is not super relevant. But like, the idea of the Higgs system is that it would be massively amplifying the amount of energy you can get back out of these get out of the thrusters. Like right now, if I show you the actual calculations, like compared to pure annihilation, right? Um, if this is the calculation for the amount of energy that is being taken out of the system, it's like compared to the mass, say compared to the masses of the actual atoms, it's tiny. It's like 0.001 daltons, which then gets multiplied up by the number of atoms in a mole, in a kilogram of helium, and yada 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 yada. And it goes all the way out to here. So, yeah. This is what happens when I get nerd sniped. Okay, I'm gonna post this to the thread. We add this to the replies. We cut this back to and then we cut the. Then we grab my note from up here and say, hey, do that, and then we grab that. And I said that I wanted to do the math of this. These purposes of ignoring energy weapons with scale that is not. No. It is quite interesting. I'll probably do a I'll do a second post later once I'm done with my once I'm done with the update for the other story. And let's also do it over here. Side story. Fusion. Over on speed. Thank. Proteum, just like everybody else. It's just like plain old hydrogen. Ooh. But yeah, I just posted um all the rocket science. Um, yeah. Okay, now let's. Hmm. Um, um, uh, 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 will there have been some scares? Um, wait, I did do this right. Oh yeah. Um, so Jun can technically make smaller fusion generators um, than the BattleTech universe can, right? As long as they don't care about it putting out thrust, they can make a fusion generator that's about like the size of a big water bottle, or like one of those. Anyways, they can make like a man portable like bedroll or like a sleeping bag sized. Not even a sleeping bag. It depends on the sleeping bag. Yeah. Not like a Fallout Fusion core where it's like a little tiny one. No, it's not the size of a soda can. It's bigger than that. It's uh about like, let me get a ruler so I can visualize this. Okay, so it's about 10 centimeters. It's about 10 centimeters wide by about 15 centimeters long, and then cylindrical. I guess it's smaller than it's smaller than a 2-liter bottle. I think volume is still roughly around 2 liters, but yeah. Well, there have been some. Yeah. Do that. This is correct. Posting time there. That's correct. That's also correct. That's fine. Not much. Probably only like a couple kilowatts. But you can do it for a while, right? If you hook it up to a normal tank of protium, it'll go for like probably like over a year or so. Because like 4 grams, like the molar mass, so a kilogram of helium, which is the output, which is fairly close to the amount of input. Yeah. Let me guess. You thought it was a Yu-Gi-Oh reference? Oh yeah. Yeah, Jun can make fusion cores. Yep. Like, especially for like civilian cars and stuff. Though they would go slightly bigger than that to like a normal engine size, which would put them roughly on par with the BattleTech engines of that size. The really big thing in terms of BattleTech, and this isn't something that's like shown up in the story yet because it's only due to happen like 30 years from now in the original timeline, is battle armor, right? Which is basically the BattleTech version of power armor. And those run on batteries in this universe. But Jun can make a little fusion core that's small enough to be used as the power source for that. Some scares, especially with Butter. Takami has made it clear that the god in question doesn't particularly care about you seeking to protect your home clinic. Well, which means. Oh yeah, and I also made like a bunch of progress on the roller off stream. Yep. So we went from this. So this is what it was like when we stopped yesterday. Now it looks like this. Well, this hasn't changed, but this is working, including the search functionality. And all of the buttons for this are put in. So yeah. So all I need to do is hook this up so that it populates with the actual perk names. And then actually include all of the hook up the rolling system, set up the saves, and then just load all of the perks into it. Well, which means that you can't really say that need to get back to work on the protection. Unfortunately, you won't be able to get it done in time for this year's wet season. Not that you had, or did you hoped to? I'm not sure if it's likely to happen, right? Because they just straight up have better options. right? They can use L2 for that, right? They can set up like a L2 collector that just stores up a large volume of L2 in in a bubble in space, and then fires lasers through it to um uh to hit whatever they want to on the other side with like immensely powerful laser beams. So there's no real reason why they would need to have like they would need to have a system that would like blow itself up. The apparatus for making L2 is pretty cheap, right? So their version of a bomb pumped laser would probably be, oh, we've got like a big cheap thing of L2 that we've stuck in orbit, and we have like a little laser drone that scuttles around the outside until it's on the opposite side of whatever it's trying to hit, and then it just shoots a laser through the L2 container, and it just comes out the other side as like an extremely high powered beam. No need to go like super complicated for it or anything. Not that you actually hoped to. But it would have been. Oh wait, I need to. That's what I was forgetting. But it would have been nice too. Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Jun would need to have an orbital laser with a fairly minimal spread. I think Rayleigh scattering makes most lasers, like I think the power drop off like per centimeter squared is like, I think you go down by um like a power of 10 every like 10 maybe 10 or 100 kilometers or something like that. It's like, it's not much. You can kind of get around that by just having a really powerful laser. But yeah, anyways, I need to. What is the Rayleigh scattering thingamajig? Rayleigh. Laser. Angle of diffraction. Wavelength. Laser cohesion, coherence. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Space laser. Disper. Yeah. So hold on. Uh, uh, mm, 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 uh, I remember there being a thing where it's like there is like quantum this it's like quantum laser diffraction. Anyways, point is there is some math somewhere in there that does the calculation. Hmm. No, the fusion engine wouldn't work for a missile because neither Jun nor the Inner Sphere can make fusion torches that small. Unless you plan to make your missile the size of an ASF, it's not going to be worth it to put a fusion engine on it. Like, you can't really put a fusion engine on it. Upside, you can instead uh yeah, like, I mean, in theory, if the so I remember there being an issue with lasers in space. Lasers in space. Perfect. You call it. There. That's what I was looking for. Maximum call. Yeah. Yeah. Here. Maximum maximum. But yeah, there is a thing that you can figure out how to do it. You can eventually figure it out, but point is, I think that the maximum collimation comes in at something like for every 1,000 kilometers that the laser travels, you end up shooting over what ends up equaling like a kilometer say a kilometer, yeah. So it'll eventually come out to the point where you're spreading out, like, even if you do like a gigawatt laser pulse, if you spread that out over an entire square kilometers worth of area, everywhere is just getting hit with like less than a kilowatt. Especially if you started with less than a square meter, like, initial shot, right? So, yeah, there's nothing really you can do about it. But yeah, you can't beat the coherence of a big old rock. Yeah, but like most ships, it's like yeah, sure. But then again, a lot of ships will also have ways of dealing with heat, and perhaps if you could dump enough heat into a ship, you could force it to shut down, and that's like a reasonable use for something like that, right? Where your goal is not so much to destroy the ship, your goal is to dump enough heat into the entire ship that like all the safeties trip and the ship entirely shuts down in order to not blow up. That could be a legitimate use for a laser weapon like that, where your goal is not so much to destroy the ship, it's just like, okay, we want to capture this thing, so we're going to like cause every failsafe on the ship to activate at once and paralyze it, so that we can just go over there and, you know. Unfortunately, nice to expected to keep that hope alive. Now that you're bonus to keep that hope alive. That means you can put off the weather control. Yep. That is indeed an option. There is something. Yep. Yeah, but the thing is, dropships are still valuable, right? Like, it takes a while to build something like a dropship, and dropships still have KF booms and stuff like that, which use expensive materials like germanium. So capturing dropships is actually really important. So yeah, some kind of thermobomb is actually a super interesting prospect, and something that I think I should keep in mind for some stuff that's happening in the near future. Yeah, that's actually a really good idea. If you have the jump ship, it's yours, right? Like, the general rule is you don't destroy jump ship, right? Beyond that, I don't think they care about you taking a jump ship if you can do so without destroying the jump ship. So, yeah. Assuming that you can take it without damaging it, right? If you can damage it without, say, if you damage it at all, you're generally considered to be like persona non grata. So, there is something else. There's something you stumbled across during your previous preparation. That's a little more immediately interesting. Yeah. And it does help explain some stuff that I want to happen in the near future. So I'm probably going to have to create a new thing for reference. Actually, let me make a note. Um... Note. This should get a heat payload. Thermal payload. For the non-destructive. Disablement of jump ships / dropships. Mm. So AMD is currently working on like their next generation X3D stuff with Medusa Point, and that's using stacked chips that have like wires and stuff that have all this like have this like 3D geometry within their chips, right? Jun had that geometry from the beginning. So I think it would be the equivalent of like one or two generations beyond even what we are doing now. And like, yeah. Um, uh, uh, mm, uh, mm, yeah. Uh, 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 mm, hmm. Um, hmm. 'Cause when you studied the structure of the defenses that your family has in place over the valley. And, mm, mm, But yeah, Jun was creating processors that were not like great, but competitive with modern smartphones using the equivalent of like 2010s technology. And now they are very close to having manufacturing technology that is on par with, if not better, with what we have on Earth right now. Nothing much. We were just talking about how Rubite mentioned a really interesting weapon for Jun to be developing in the future. Based on disabling a ship rather than destroying it, which is very useful for some of the stuff that I have planned for the story. Understand the structure of the defense. Realize. No, it's a heat bomb, right? Basically, Jun would be using a very diffuse laser weapon to dump a lot of heat back into the system, to say a lot of heat into their cooling systems that should theoretically force a shutdown if they have any sort of safety systems in place. And like, I doubt that they would be like insane enough to shut down their ships, like thermal overrides and stuff like that. So this should make it so that their ships basically say, okay, nope, we're overheating. We're shutting down the engines. We're shutting down the fusion reactor. We're shutting down like any. So we're shutting down everything that isn't absolutely necessary. So you get life support, but you don't get basically anything else. Maybe like the reactor even scrams itself so that. Yeah. Like maybe if you're in a dropship that's actively landing, then maybe you still have engines, but you definitely lose like all weapons, all communications, everything that can be spared. You realize that they seemed to be consuming free spirit energy in a manner not entirely. Yeah. And interestingly, it should even specifically disable any mechs, because mechs are pretty heat sensitive. So if you're cooking off the dropship, you're probably also cooking off the mechs that are inside the dropship. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna be right back. 1 second. Micro. Not really. We still get massive signal attenuation over long distance. And like heat, the amount of heat that a mech can shed is still quite substantial. So I don't think that that would be a major issue with battle mechs. At least the amount that you could do with an orbital microwave gun. You would probably do far more damage to the environment than you are doing to the battle mech. I mean, I don't put hard numbers on Jun's ship, right? Because trying to put hard numbers on something like that I don't actually know enough about is really dangerous. Like, it's really dangerous in terms of like what's possible, what's not, this, that, the other thing, blah 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 blah. And I'm not really super interested in doing that. Yeah, so basically all I'm saying is that, hey, this is better than this. This is something that this can do. This is presumably not the upper limit of what's capable, and like I'll keep the numbers broad. Like I won't say, oh, this took exactly 48 hours to get here. I'd say, okay, that took like two days or 3 days or whatever. I'll make sure to keep at least one order of magnitude so that I have a bit of breathing room. Free second ambient magic, entirely unlike the spirits you have previous. While you aren't certain, you think that there might be a way to push things further, and awaken the wards over the valley into a true. If possible, it would neatly solve the problem of having some sort of guiding to manage all in involved process. The Star League had working AI technology, as in some sort of system that was capable of, like, virally attacking other computer systems. It's really weird, right? Like, the extent of Star League information technology is super unclear. Also, there are still hard limits to how good Jun's computers can be, right? There are physical limits. So, yeah. Like, you are not you are, like, you might be able to push some higher clock speeds, but Jun systems probably... No, I mean, there are, like, we're running into physical limits, right? When we're talking about the current generation of processors, the features on the chips, like the actual logic gates, are being measured in the number of atoms across they are, right? So, like, the traces on the chip are like five or six atoms across. The, like, gate structures are like a dozen atoms across, or whatever else, right? You're not fixing that problem without migrating away from what it means to have semiconductor technology, right? That's why there's currently, like, a lot of push towards photonics and stuff like that, because that does very different calculations. of managing need weather and so now I need to up my tabs and then hop into inventory. Yep, it has. If I pull up the perk sheet, if I pull up the perk sheet, it will load in who knows how long. I believe it is time flies. Yep, 5 times faster. Crunch time. June already has sleight of hand. What overtime? 10x. They all stack, so I think in total Jun goes from, so if we add them all together, right? We've got 10x, which is literally 10 times faster, or what overtime, which is double speed, crunch time, which is triple speed, so we're at 60 times faster. Sleight of hand is another double, 120 times faster. This is another 5 times faster, so that is 6,000 times faster. This is 4 times faster again, so that is 24,000 times faster. Yada 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 yada. So yeah, Jin has perks for doing shit faster. I mean, you need to roll all of those perks to get to those numbers and pay and have the steps for it all, right? So yeah. Um, Orb Weaver. Like maybe original Dragon Ball level stuff, like before Z, right? Dragon Ball. I don't think Jun would even be able to replicate what Mercenary Tao does. But yeah, Jun is very fast and quite strong. They're not like immune to knives or anything, but between their key enhanced reflexes and their psionic ability to detect intent and stuff, they can reliably dodge bullets. Usually by like predicting when people are gonna shoot and shit. Jin's done that several times in the story. Like dodge bullets. Yeah. Like Jun is definitely nowhere near supersonic, right? So they would need to be to properly dodge bullets. But they can like run at highway speeds. So oh, I forgot what feat is. Yeah. As in like for an extended period of time, right? Like in theory, Usain Bolt can hit those kinds of speeds when for like a few seconds, but I'm gonna say that this is somewhere in the neighborhood of like 6,000. Like the difficulty on this. Uh, this is a difficult project. I mean, technically there is just. I'm gonna give this a possibility of success, and we're going to go with 3,900. Uh, uh, yep. Wait, what? How many is it? It is 1 plus 37. Hmm. Um, Um, like minorly, but not significantly better, right? Um, Jun's Jun's thruster, the one that um they're building for their master's project, their master's thesis, is um is better than um uh uh like is technically better than fusion engines that exist in the system, in the setting, right? But not by very much. Like ultimately it's the equivalent of, so Jun is doing the equivalent of building a little bit more compact, a little bit more efficient version of the existing engines, right? By starting a little smaller and then using mega machines to build up so that it's a more efficient version of the same size, right? They're going from the smallest one they can make to a little bit bigger. They're using mega machines to help guide them through the process of scaling it up. And then as they scale it up, they learn more about how to improve their understanding, and they kind of work backwards a little bit until they got to a stage where they were No. So they started with a fusion design, right? What they did was they took their fusion core design, like the smallest fusion core that could turn into the thruster configuration. Then they compared it to. Then they started making it just a thruster using the stuff that they'd learn at BTU, right? So they got rid of all the transforming components. They fixed it into the thrust configuration. They simplified systems as far as they could go, and then they used mega machines to make it bigger. I would say, and then they also did the same exercise with a slightly bigger fusion engine, right? And then they use mega machines to make they use their understanding from mega machines to scale up their smaller design. And then they compared their smaller thruster design against the bigger thruster design that they made by using one of the designs they got from the fusion core perk and making that into just a thruster instead of a reactor that has a thrust mode. And then when they compared those two, they're like, oh, okay, this is the stuff that that scaling it up, and my vision granted intuition of how to scale things up made things better and more efficient. Okay, now that I understand that, can I apply these tweaks and optimizations to the initial design? And then once I've made those improvements to the smaller design, and we've kind of worked that out, let's start scaling it up again. And then that's how Jun ended up with the design that they showed to the professor, right? And then the professor pointed out, yeah, you kind of screwed up here. And then based on that stuff that the teacher is telling them about, and also this paper that the teacher is showing them. They're going to optimize the design further until it is roughly equivalent to which is until it's like slightly better than a standard fusion engine from the setting, right? Jun is kind of cheating on like the thing about fusion engines in the setting is that their accelerations are not really limited by their thrust capabilities, right? Like to some extent it is, but realistically, the main thing that you're worried about is like absolutely pancaking your pilot by by putting them under consistent high G loads. So like the fastest fusion systems, let's say fusion thrusters in the setting, say the fastest ASFs in the setting hit something like hit something like 5.5 Gs or something like that of constant acceleration. Jun, when they're designing their spacecraft, is kind of not really concerning themselves with. So he's like, they can take it because they've got like their augmentations, right? So they're building up their spacecraft to handle higher G loads and all of that other stuff. Because like between the slight benefits they get from their engines and also their improved, like their lighter armor and stuff like that. Think of it like this, right? Jun's engine compared to an engine of the same weight class is like a 5% increase, right? Like their engine is 5% better than someone else's engine that's roughly the same, like the local engines are roughly the same size. This is before any Higgs shenaniganry. This is just pure fusion stuff. Then, because of the size increase, right, Jun is getting an additional 30%, right? So they're getting something like a total of 31.5% or whatever from all of their stuff, compared to what would normally go on a ship like that. And then they're also getting a little bit more from the fact that they're using scale and they're using like better materials in their personal ship until they're like really pushing the amount of, and they're using more engines on the ship than would normally go into it. So yeah. So Jun would probably Jun would probably be including stuff for like with Higgs stuff eventually, which would have stuff like much more powerful fusion thruster, right? Which would like multiply output several times over. And like at that point, Jun's running into the same problem of what do you call it? Of um um uh, um, Trying the word is oh wait, hold on. I misread that. I mean, this is all. This roll is still fine. That your house has been undermined. A couple chapters, I think. There's a bit of a time skip going on in the story, so yeah, Jun won't be on Bolin much longer because there's only so much that Jun can do on Bolin. Possibly damaging. Has is a little it's hard to measure because like it's not exactly real. It's not exactly real mass. It is real mass because it is like direct Higgs field manipulation, right? But it isn't mass in the same way as. Just assume that it's got like very little mass, right? The liquid light doesn't actually really have mass, right? It has an apparent mass of its energy, of its like mass energy equivalence, but the Higgs field stuff, the mass is kind of dependent on like how strong the Higgs field is, and it very much depends on like what you're doing, right? You could manipulate things so that the Higgs field, so that the energy in the system is a lot higher, and then yada 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 yada. Nope. Yeah, like it depends on like the Higgs field and Higgs field geometry and all that. The general concept is that the Higgs field is directly altering the, like, by manipulating the Higgs field, you're altering the way that um the electromagnetic and Higgs fields interact, which causes photons to act a little bit more like electrons, right? It is transforming I think it's a boson to a fermion or something like that. It's basically precipitate. It's like changing the way that um, it's changing the way that the photons exist in that space. And like, yes, there is some quantization of it, which means that you have steps, but you can give it an effective mass of much higher than it would normally be. Um, trying to feed the ward. Feed the ward directly. No. I think that assigned you as though you should probably do something. If having some local would be help in the broader, outside the broader whole to the broader match. Miniaturization, the miniaturization perk in this case is more about being able to make things smaller while not losing functionality, even if yeah even if it does that. It's called mini machines. It's somewhere over here. Mini machines, yada yada yada. So it doesn't it makes it less powerful but smaller, right? You begin, but it doesn't take you. But you that takes you a what? Find spirits that are willing to aid you in, but Um, I mean, there is a perk that that just makes things better every time Jun makes something, right? So there's like two perks like that. There's latest and greatest, and there is also um there's another one that has basically says that everything you do is like a masterwork. Yeah. So the process says that, hey, regardless of what you've made, the next thing you make will always be better. Um. Mm, but with there, you are able to try out several uh several prompts. As you slowly hone in instinct. It's not brilliant, but the uh you but the uh mix of magical herbs. Um, it would only be the best example of that tiny, small, fast thing, but also it has to be something that they are like deliberate, they're actually making, right? If they're just like making an assembly line that churns out thousands of these things, like tens of thousands of these things, the assembly line would be the thing that would be really awesome, not the devices that are being made by the assembly line, right? Um, and like, sure, a really awesome assembly line is going to make really awesome stuff, but it's not like it's going to make better and better stuff each time. Um, magical orbs and uh, mundane, uh, mundane is enough to. Yeah, then Jun would make the best nails in existence, right? But it would just be nails. It isn't like Skyrim smithing, where being really good at making daggers makes you really epic at making swords. No. What am I enough to Yes. Enough to uh uh deliver enough enough magic directly into the to sate its hunger for a while and let it explore the valley a little more freely. So they they aren't particularly enthused by it, but they don't complain and seem to enjoy running, wandering around the valley, though they do event. Um, you have something workable for the um um uh uh I mean, I'm not sure if Jun has a particular concern with the full capacity of the chips. Jun just wants a product that will be really easy to proliferate, right? Jun wants to be able to make millions of these things so that they can like hand them off to so that they can sell them all over the periphery and stuff. Until like people actually realize, say periphery and all the other planets, that people kind of realize, oh, this is actually really good, and then start buying from him. So, um, yeah, a lot to be able to enjoy. Into his bed. Like, um, one, uh, if ready for if nothing else, you do want a that's but this is also good. Not, but you could probably start setting up for student people. And you aren't. Okay, I'm gonna need to be out for a second. I'm gonna be right back. I don't know if Phil would ever really get around to making an orbital laser, right? There's just much better ways of delivering that weapon, that level of damage. Like, what's the benefit of an orbital laser? In theory, it's like the reusability of it, right? Where you could get, like, you build it once and then you forget about it. But, like, is that really a huge deal? When are you expecting to be attacked all the time? So um knew I shouldn't have come back. Hmm.
I don't think Jun would do space, ground to space or space to ground. I think most of Jun's stuff is going to be, um, I mean, there's the core toms, right? The re-entry capable missiles, and that's going to be more exemplar of Jun's space operations.